Now, at this stage, I've got my Batman colored, and obviously, there's more things to do than this, but just for the sake of this demo, I'm going to try to color Batman similar to my one that I have here on the right. Okay? So what I've got all my base colors in. Now, this is done in a combination of paint bucket and paintbrush. So if I turn off my lines layer above it, you can see that the cape was done basically with brush, that's filled in. The Batman here was done with the torso was actually done with some paint bucket and brush. So on my lines layer, on my color layer, I still have a bunch of lines in here. I'm going to get rid of some of these things to make my life a little bit easier. So I'm going to go to my color picker. I'm going to choose that color right there. I'm going to go back to my paintbrush. Now, this is important. I want to be able to do his torso differently than his arms. So what I'm going to do on my color layer is I'm going to paint in, with the completely wrong brush, I'm going to paint in some areas of color, and this is going to break holes, if you will, through these separating lines. This is going to help me with my selection here in a minute. You'll see what I'm talking about in just a second. So I really don't have to do that much to this, honestly, but if I just pop a hole in here, when I use my selection tool, it's going to go across all these different lines. So I'm just going to go break these up a little bit. Break these up a little bit, etc., etc. Okay? There, those all have lines broken in. I did not break the lines between the arms and the torso because I want to keep those things separate. Now what's going to happen when I go to my fuzzy select tool, I can click on my torso, and you can see that I've selected all the torso. I actually got a little bit of the arm, which I did not want to get, but we'll just have to deal with that a little bit later. I'm not going to worry about it too much right now. I'm going to turn my lines back on for this. So we're going to shadow this. So if you look at the guy here I have on the right, the colored one, since the light source is coming in from the upper left, you can see how the whole left and top parts of him are lit, and then the right side and the bottom parts of him are shadowed. I'm going to try to copy that or emulate that a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to come back here. So in my colors that I had before, I had a darker gray, so that was my middle gray right there. I'm going to go to my darker one, hit OK, and I'm going to go to a very, very fuzzy edge brush. That's important. And I'm going to go back to my tool options, and I'm going to go make sure I actually get a brush. That would be useful, wouldn't it? Now, when I do this, I want to have a brush which is relatively large in size. You can see there's the size of the brush right there. And I'm going to go down, since the light's coming from here and I'm working with the shadow, I'm going to go down the right side of him. Oops, you can see I missed a little bit of the chest right there. I'll have to go back and get that. Hold on. Fuzzy select tool, hold my shift button down to add to what I already have, grab that, go back to my brush. Alright, so I'm going to darken that right side. I can change my brush size around a little bit if I want to. I'm going to darken in his armpit. Now, I know the light's coming from the upper left, but this is back behind that cloak area. It's really not getting a lot of light, so I'm going to shadow that as well. I can also shadow under things. So let me zoom in. Definitely go with the smaller brush here. So for instance, not that small. If you go too small, here's what happens. If you go really small, it's like coloring with a marker, okay? Even if you color an entire area in with a marker, what happens is you still sort of see the marker lines. We don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with as large a brush as I can get away with, like this, and I can shadow under the cape there a little bit, under this thing. See, it gives it a cast shadow effect. That's realistic. I like that. That's what we want to have. I can do a little one under here. Actually, I can't go into here anyway. I'm painting, doesn't work. Don't have to worry about it. It's not selected. Put a shadow under that as well. So now I've got my shadow down the right side. If I want to, I can put some shadow details here under the chest muscle, down along here, under the chest muscle. I can do one down the center of his stomach here a little bit. He's got these sort of like armored ab things going on, right? So I'm going to put some stuff in here. Notice I cannot paint over the belt. This is the whole point of having the selection. It's very, very useful. Here, I'm going to shadow the side of the armor. Don't worry if you don't get it exactly right. I'm going to show you why that's not super important. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to go into a highlight. So I'm going to click in here. I'm going to go to this very, very light gray that I have in here. And let's see here. Making my life a little bit difficult because I have a cast shadow there. But let's try it out. So large brush. bit of highlight along there. Okay. A little bit of highlight along here, I guess, too. Honestly, it's just the shadow portion that isn't getting lit. A little bit of light along that. A little bit of light along that. I said, notice I'm not doing super high detail yet. Hit the abs a little bit. I'm thinking of these as sort of individual shapes. Left side's light, right side's dark, middle is my base color. Okay, maybe these are picking up just a little bit of reflection on there. Not much. Something like that. Alright, as I said, I'm not worried if I'm getting it perfect because I'm now going to go into my Smudge Tool. And with the Smudge Tool, I'm going to fine-tune these. So for instance, I can pull these lighter or shadow areas around. I can move them, so I'm going to sort of wrap these highlight areas around the shapes that I have here. I can pull my medium tone. If I say, oh, it's too much light, I'm going to pull my medium tone back into this. Pull my medium tone back into this. Curve the shadows around here. And once again, I can play with my brush size as much as I need to. Pull this up. Pull more medium back into this. So you can see that when I originally painted these lighter and darker areas, here I'll pull some more dark in along this edge. Pull some more medium into this edge. I just have to get it close. Just have to get it close. The real work is done with the Smudge Tool. Okay? So here I'll make this, pull these highlighted reflections around the edges of the armor. If you're not really quite sure what to do, generally follow the lines that the artist put down in the first place. Pull the shadow in here under his pec. Actually, I probably want a little bit more shadow in there, so I'll go back to my brush real quick. Go back to my dark color. Painting along here. Go back to my smudge and make this look better. Okay. Smooth this out. Slightly large brush. There we go. I'll work along it. It's going to smooth it out. Beauty of the Smudge Tool. Okay, so back off. Let me deselect. And I've got a pretty three-dimensional looking Batman torso. Okay, so we can kind of continue this. I can go back to my fuzzy select tool. And now, for instance, I can select the arm, hold my shift button down to add to my selection, grab these sections of arm in his hand. I'm going to leave the fingers alone for right now because I want to come back and do those a little bit later. Once again, brush, I'm still on my dark. Go to a larger size brush, go down the outside. Okay. Let's see here, I'm going to darken a little bit along where his body is covering it up. A little bit down to his palm there, so you darken that. Go to my highlighter. Get that light gray. Definitely a smaller brush at this point. A little bit of light there, a little bit of light there, just a touch. A little bit of light there. Notice I cannot paint the yellow because it's not selected. A little bit on his thumb, things like that. Go back to my Smudge Tool. Zoom in. Always zoom in. And once again, use the Smudge Tool. Pull some medium back into this so there's not quite so much highlight. Okay, I can't work out of the selected area, so I don't have to worry about, accidentally messing it up in that regard. Pull some highlight around his thumb. Make his thumb not quite that light all the way through it, etc., etc. Alright, once again, deselect. Batman's looking pretty 3D.